My mom didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She just stood at the kitchen counter, arms crossed, voice steady like she had rehearsed the line. We used your savings to buy your brother a car. No apology. No guilt. Just a statement of fact, dropped into the air like it was a normal Tuesday morning. My brother, Tyler, leaned against the fridge with a stupid smirk, spinning the keys to his brand new silver Camaro around his finger. You'll get over it, Ava, he said casually. You weren't using the money anyway. I stared at them. My mom, stone-faced. My dad pretending to organize mail so he didn't have to look at me. My brother acting like he'd earned something. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I didn't even swallow. I just set my phone on the table, looked my mother straight in the eye, and said one word that made the room go dead silent. Repay. Not loud. Not angry. Just cold. That word was the first crack in our family's perfect picture. But before I tell you what happened next, are you still with me? My name is Ava Hart. I'm 22 years old, and for most of my life, I thought being the easy child was a good thing. I thought it made me mature, patient, understanding. It took me way too long to realize that in my family, easy was just another word for expendable. I grew up in a house where fairness wasn't even a concept. Tyler was the firstborn, the golden boy, the one my parents bragged about at every barbecue. Tyler's captain of the football team. Tyler S. applying to engineering programs. Tyler deserves a good start. Meanwhile, I was Ava's doing fine. Not excellent. Not impressive. Just fine. Everything in our home bent toward whatever Tyler needed. Money, time, praise, excuses. And I became the adjustable child, always shifting so he could shine brighter. By the time I turned 18, the only thing that felt truly mine was my savings account. I'd worked 3 part-time jobs through high school, babysitting, cashier shifts, taking notes for students with accommodations. Every paycheck, every tip, every extra dollar I earned went straight into that account. My goal was simple: move out, go to college, and finally live a life that didn't orbit around Tyler Hart and his endless needs. My parents promised me that money was safe. We're proud of you, they used to say. You're responsible, Ava. You're different. Different. That word stung more than it should have. But I believed them. I believed my effort mattered. I believed responsibility would be rewarded. Turns out, responsibility just made me convenient. The day everything came crashing down, I had just gotten home from work at the coffee shop. My shoes were still soaked from a storm, and my tips for the day were barely enough to cover gas. I walked in to see Tyler revving the engine of a brand new Camaro in our driveway, exhaust curling into the air like a warning signal. I didn't think for a second the car was tied to me. Why would it be? But when I stepped inside, Mom didn't even wait for me to take my jacket off. We used your savings to buy your brother a car. I felt my heartbeat stop for one loud, painful second. Not because of the money, but because of how easy it was for them. How normal they made it sound. Tyler shrugged, tossing the keys onto the counter like they'd grown there. You wouldn't understand. I actually need a car. Mom cut in, her voice sharp. Your brother's future depends on having a good vehicle. Yours can wait, Ava. There it was. The real truth. My life was optional. His was urgency. And that's when I realized I had 2 choices. Shrink again, or stand up so loudly they'd never be able to ignore me. So I chose the one thing they didn't expect: clarity. Repay. The room didn't shake, but their expressions did. None of us knew it yet, but that one single word was about to unravel 22 years of favoritism, lies, financial manipulation, and something much darker beneath it all. This was the beginning. After I said that one word, repay, my mom's expression cracked for the first time. Just a flicker, a tiny twitch in her jaw. The first sign that maybe I wasn't playing my old role anymore. Tyler scoffed, like the universe itself was on his side. You're being dramatic, Ava. You barely had anything saved up. I almost laughed. It wasn't funny, but the audacity, it was unbelievable. I had $18,000, I said quietly. That shut him up. My dad finally looked at me, eyebrows pulled together, like the number confused him. Like he wasn't sure whether to be proud or embarrassed. Mom crossed her arms tighter. Well, it's gone now, she snapped. The decision is made. The decision. Not theft. Not betrayal. A decision. That night, I lay in my room staring at the ceiling, feeling something strange. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't even anger. It was awakening. Like a fog I'd lived in all my life suddenly started lifting. I opened my banking app, just to see it for myself. The balance read. 27 cents. 27 cents. Then something else caught my eye. A small alert at the top of the screen. 36 points. Credit score change detected. My stomach dropped. I tapped into the section and felt sick. A loan. A real loan. Taken out in my name. For $12,000. I stared at the numbers, so long I forgot to breathe. My hands shook. My throat went dry. A cold, sinking dread crawled up my spine. Someone had used my information. My name. My details. My future. And only one group of people had access to all of that. My family. I sat there for nearly an hour, the glow of my phone screen lighting the room while everything inside me slowly rearranged itself. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't forgetfulness. This wasn't a slip in judgment. This was deliberate. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen holding the printed loan document. Tyler was already eating cereal like a king, the keys hanging from his lanyard like a trophy. Mom looked annoyed the second she saw me. What now? I held up the paper. What is this? Dad froze. Mom didn't. Oh, that, she said, waving her hand. We had to co-sign something for Tyler. The bank said it needed additional credit history. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. $12,000. In my name. Without my permission. You forged my signature, I said, my voice shaky but clear. Mom's eyes narrowed into something cold. Don't be dramatic, Ava. You left your documents lying around. We thought you wouldn't mind contributing. Contributing. Like my life was a group project, and Tyler was the only one who counted toward the grade. You had no right, I whispered. Tyler leaned back in his chair, arms behind his head. Relax. Once I start working full-time, I'll pay it off. He had been saying those words since he was 17. And he was 24. Still unemployed. Still coddled. Still believing the world would bend for him, the way our parents always had. I looked at all three of them, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the outsider. I felt like the threat. Something inside me had snapped the day before, but today something else formed clarity. A plan. A spine where the soft parts of me used to be. I folded the loan paper carefully, placed it on the counter, and said, You're going to meet me tomorrow, all of you, 4 o'clock, don't be late. Dad frowned. Meet you where? I met his eyes. You'll find out. And then I walked out, past the sink full of dishes I used to wash, past the living room I used to clean, past the house that used to feel like mine. Behind me, Mom called out, Ava, don't make this into something bigger than it is. I didn't even turn around. It already is, I said. And for the first time in 22 years, I felt the shift. Small, quiet, powerful. A beginning. The next afternoon, the sky was one of those dull, washed-out blues, the kind that makes every street look colder than it should. Perfect for the kind of conversation I was about to force my family into. I arrived 15 minutes early. Not at home. Not at a restaurant. But at the Community Credit Union, the same place the mysterious loan had been taken in my name. I waited inside, sitting on one of those stiff lobby chairs, fingers interlaced so tightly my knuckles hurt. A part of me was terrified. Another part of me felt eerily calm, almost detached, like I was stepping into someone else's life, or finally stepping out of the version of myself they had always preferred. At exactly 3:58 p.m., the door swung open. Mom entered first, jaw tense, arms folded like she expected a lecture. Dad followed behind her, looking uncomfortable but still defensive, like he had rehearsed a few excuses on the drive over. Tyler came last. Of course he did. He walked in slowly, swinging his car keys around his finger, sunglasses perched on his head like he was arriving fashionably late to an event thrown in his honor. He stopped when he saw the sign on the wall. Account Services and Loan Department, right arrow. What is this? He asked, frowning. You'll see, I said, standing. Mom sighed sharply. Ava, we're not doing this, whatever point you're trying to make. Before she could finish, a woman in a navy blazer approached us. Hi, are you the Carson family? I'm Dana, the loan officer you spoke with yesterday. My mother blinked. Loan officer. She looked at me. What did you do? I didn't answer. Instead, I gestured for Dana to lead the way. We were taken to a small private room, 4 glass walls, a round table, a stack of paperwork already in place like evidence at a trial. Everyone sat. I stayed standing. Dana opened the folder. So, she began, glancing at all of them, I understand there's some confusion regarding the $12,000 auto loan recently opened under Ava Carson's name. My mom immediately stiffened. There's no confusion, she snapped. We handled that on behalf of Tyler. It's a family matter. Dana raised a hand gently. Ma'am, legally speaking, it's not a family matter. It's an identity issue. Ava contacted us because she never authorized the loan, and based on initial review, she flipped a page, it appears her signature was forged. No one breathed. Not even me. Tyler swallowed hard. Even he wasn't arrogant enough to interrupt a bank official. Mom's face drained to an unnatural shade. Dad let out a long, shaky exhale. I don't understand, Dad murmured. We thought. You thought, Dana said politely but firmly, you could use her information without consequences. But because the loan was opened in her name, she is the one legally responsible for repayment, interest, and credit damage. She placed the forged signature sheet directly in front of them. My mother's eyes widened. It was a horrible feeling, watching her realize what she'd done. Not because she felt guilty, but because she finally understood this could cost her something. I didn't mean we didn't think, she stuttered. You didn't think at all, I said. My voice was soft, controlled, the kind of calm that made people listen harder. For the first time, my mother didn't have a comeback. Even Tyler's usual smugness had evaporated. His face was pale. Dana continued, Ava has 2 options. She can file a fraud report which will open a formal investigation. She slid a paper toward me. Or the responsible parties can assume the loan entirely in their own names, removing Ava from all financial ties. Mom tensed. Wait, if she reports us. There will be legal consequences, Dana said gently. Silence. Zick. I see. Tyler finally spoke, voice small, almost childish. So, what are you going to do, Ava? I looked at each of them, one by one. The mother who dismissed me. The father who stayed silent. The brother who believed my life existed to elevate his. And for the first time ever, they were all waiting on my decision. The power shift was so sharp I could feel it in my bones. I haven't decided yet, I said quietly. Mom's eyes widened with fear. But tomorrow, I continued, I'll give you my answer. I picked up my bag, nodded to Dana, and headed for the door. No one followed me. No one called after me. They just sat there, frozen in the aftermath of the truth they'd never expected to face. And as I stepped outside, the cold wind hit my skin like a promise. For once, they didn't get to choose the ending. I did. I barely slept that night. Not because I was scared. Not because I doubted myself. But because, for the first time in my life, they were the ones lying awake wondering what I might do next. I knew it. I felt it. And honestly, it was the first real peace I'd felt in months. The next morning, I went through my routine like nothing had changed. Coffee. Shower. Work shift. Walk home under the cold evening sky. But everything had changed. I was different. Not louder. Not angrier. Just awake. Sharp. Focused. I didn't text them. Didn't remind them about anything. Didn't answer the 2 missed calls from my dad or the 3 from my mom. Let them stew. At exactly 6:10 p.m., I pulled into their driveway. Their cars were already there. All the lights inside were on, like the house was bracing itself. I walked in without knocking. Mom was in the kitchen, pacing. Dad sat stiffly at the table. Tyler hovered nearby, arms crossed like he was preparing for battle, but already out of ammunition. Mom spoke first. Ava, this has gone far enough. Her tone was sharp, but her eyes. Fear. Real fear. Sit, she said. I'm fine standing, I replied softly. Dad cleared his throat, trying to sound calm. We talked to the bank again after you left yesterday. We understand your frustration, but going to the bank like that, threatening legal action. I never threatened anything, I said. I simply asked them what my options were. Tyler scoffed. Oh, come on, Ava. I turned to him, just once, with a look so cold he actually went quiet. Then I placed a new folder on the table. What's that? Mom asked. The second thing you never expected me to find, I said. She hesitated, then opened it. Her face drained of color. Inside weren't loan documents. Not bank statements. Not savings records. It was something worse. Every transaction linked to my name over the last 2 years. Every time they accessed my documents. Every payment they made for Tyler. Every withdrawal from my savings that wasn't for the car. Because now that I looked deeper, the betrayal was bigger than they ever intended me to see. Mom's voice cracked. Where did you get this? The bank and the credit agency and the student loan office. Turns out when you pull financial documents tied to your own identity, people take it seriously. Dad rubbed his forehead. Ava, what exactly are you accusing us of? Nothing, I said quietly. I don't accuse, I verify. Tyler stepped forward, defensive again. You're twisting everything. Mom and Dad were just helping me out because I didn't have enough credit and because they assumed I wouldn't notice, I finished. Mom's voice broke entirely. We didn't think you'd need the money right away. You were taking time off. We thought it would help your brother get started. You thought, I said softly, but you never asked. The silence that followed felt like the room itself was holding its breath. Then I spoke again, calm, steady, inevitable. You want my decision. Here it is. Mom swallowed hard. Dad looked sick. Tyler just stared at me like he didn't recognize me. The bank gave you 48 hours to take responsibility for the loan, I said. I'm giving you the same. Mom blinked. So, you're not filing fraud? I don't want to ruin anyone's life, I said, but I'm done letting you ruin mine. The relief that washed across her face was instant and blinding. Too blinding. Because she still didn't get it. I continued. You will transfer the car loan into Tyler's name. You will repay every dollar taken from my savings, and you will put it in writing, signed, notarized. Tyler sputtered. That's insane. I turned to him. What's insane is thinking you get to drive a car bought with money that wasn't yours. He shut up. Then I delivered the part they least expected. And after you repay everything, we're done. All financial ties, all shared accounts, all access to my documents. I'm not your safety net. I'm not your backup plan. I'm not your option. Mom's lip trembled. Ava, we're family. Yes, I said softly. And family shouldn't take advantage of the one person who never asked for anything. None of them could look at me. Then I ended it. You have 2 days. After that, I file the report. I picked up my coat, walked to the door, and paused. For once, I added quietly, you can worry about what I might do. And I left. Outside, the night felt cold and clean, like a brand new beginning. The next 2 days were the longest my family had ever lived through, and the calmest I had ever felt. I didn't call them. I didn't check in. I didn't remind them of the deadline. I simply waited. And for the first time, they were the ones scrambling in silence. By the evening of the second day, I got the text. Mom, come over. We need to talk. It's urgent. I didn't rush. I drove slowly, windows cracked, cool night air filling the car like a reminder of everything I was finally breathing out. When I walked into the house, the energy was different. No yelling. No defensive comments. No entitlement. Just tension. Raw, obvious tension. Dad sat at the dining table with a stack of papers in front of him. Mom hovered behind him, shoulders stiff. Tyler was pacing, something he rarely did because pacing meant thinking, and thinking wasn't something he usually bothered with. They all looked up when I entered. Mom spoke first. Ava, we took care of it. Her voice trembled on the last word. Dad slid a folder toward me. Inside were 3 documents. 1 transfer of the loan into Tyler's name. 2, a notarized statement acknowledging unauthorized use of my information. 3, a repayment agreement for the full $18,000 they took from my savings. All signed. All official. A small part of me expected to feel victory. Another part expected to feel guilt. But all I felt was clarity. You didn't have a choice, I said quietly. Dad looked down, ashamed. Tyler looked away. Mom's eyes flashed with something more complicated than remorse. It was wrong, Dad said softly. We know that now. You know that now. Now that the consequences weren't optional. I'm glad you fixed what you broke, I said. But this isn't the end of the conversation. Tyler groaned, but a single look from me shut him up instantly. I'm not filing fraud, I continued, but I am changing my life, all of it. Mom frowned. What does that mean? It means, I said, steady and calm, that you don't get access to anything that belongs to me ever again. Not my documents, not my accounts, not my identity, not my future. Mom's mouth opened, but I cut her off. There are no more spare parts of my life for you to use. Tyler rolled his eyes. So what? You're just done with us. I looked at him, really looked at him. He was 24. No job. No ambition. No accountability. Just a comfortable cushion of excuses our parents built for him and forced me to help maintain. You were handed everything, I said quietly, and you still found a way to take more. His jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. Mom finally sat down. Ava, you can't just cut family off. I felt something deep in my chest shift. A final loosening of the last thread, tying me to the version of myself they relied on. I'm not cutting you off, I said. I'm stepping away from being your solution. Dad whispered, we didn't realize we put so much on you. Yes, I replied softly. You did, because I never pushed back, because I learned that keeping the peace meant disappearing. Mom's voice cracked. That was never our intention. I held her gaze. Intentions don't undo impact. The words hung heavy between us. Tyler finally spoke, voice low. So what happens now? I closed the folder and slipped it into my bag. What happens now, I said, is that I move forward, and you figure out how to live without taking pieces of me to hold everything together. I headed toward the door, the weight in my chest lifting with every step. Mom stood. Ava, please, don't walk out angry. I turned back with a calmness she didn't recognize. I'm not walking out angry, I said. I'm walking out awake. And then I left. Again. But this time, it felt final in a way none of us were ready for. Outside, the streetlights stretched across the pavement in long golden lines, flickering over my car like a quiet blessing. For the first time, I wasn't leaving my family. I was leaving the version of myself that let them treat me like I didn't matter. And the world suddenly felt a lot wider. The next morning, my apartment felt different. Not bigger. Not brighter. Just mine. For the first time, the air didn't feel borrowed. The silence didn't feel like punishment. And my future didn't feel like something constantly being carved into by someone else's needs. I made coffee, opened the blinds, sat at my tiny kitchen table with the repayment papers spread out in front of me. $18,000. My money. Coming back in small monthly installments. It wasn't about the amount. It was about acknowledgement. They took something that belonged to me, and now they had to give it back. At noon, I got a text. Dad, we transferred the first payment. I'm sorry, Ava. I stared at that message for a long time. Not because it healed anything, but because it finally named what they had tried so hard to hide. By late afternoon, my mind felt clearer than it had in years. I grabbed my keys, drove to the community library, and walked straight to the large wooden desk near the back. College applications, financial aid forms, scholarship options, all of it waiting for me. The future they tried to reroute. I was taking it back. I filled out the first application with a steady hand, my name written neatly at the top of the form. Ava Bennett. Not the responsible one. Not the backup plan. Not the sister who can wait. Ava. Just Ava. Around 5 p.m., as the sun dipped into the horizon, painting the library windows in warm gold, I received another message, this time from my brother. Tyler, I know I messed up. I'm going to try to fix things. Not for Mom, for me. I didn't reply, but for the first time, his words didn't feel hollow. Maybe he understood something now that he'd never had to understand before. Actions have consequences, and those consequences aren't always optional. When I left the library, the air outside felt cold but calm. The kind of cold that wakes you up, not drives you back inside. I drove home slowly, letting the radio fill the silence. Every mile felt like another inch of distance between who I used to be and who I was becoming. When I got home, I found an envelope taped to my apartment door. My mom's handwriting. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, walking inside and pretending it didn't exist. But I didn't. I opened it. Inside was a letter. Not long, not dramatic, just honest in a way my mother rarely was. Ava, I know saying sorry doesn't undo what we did. I know you didn't deserve the choices we made. I hope someday you'll see we're trying to do better. I hope someday you'll want to come home, not for us, but because you feel valued here. But if you don't, I understand. Mom. I folded the letter gently. It didn't heal everything. It didn't erase anything. But it wasn't an excuse. It wasn't denial. It wasn't a demand for forgiveness. It was acknowledgement. And that was enough for now. I set it aside, walked to my window, and watched the streetlights flicker on one by one. This was my life now. Quiet, steady, built with my own hands instead of borrowed ones. I thought of the girl I used to be. The one who kept the peace by shrinking. The one who apologized for things that weren't her fault. The one who believed loving her family meant allowing herself to disappear. I whispered to her, "We're done being small." I didn't know exactly what my future looked like. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I was never going back to the version of myself they depended on. The version who never asked for anything. The version who never said no. The version who let them take because I didn't know how to stop them. That girl was gone. And the woman standing in her place. She was finally choosing herself. As I sat down at my desk again and submitted the first college application, a quiet realization settled over me. This right here was my real repayment. Not their money. Not their apology. Not their signatures. But my freedom.